Hello and welcome to part 10 on the subject basics of accounting. In the 9 parts that we have had so far, we have learned a lot of new concepts in this subject. And the latest that we learned was ledger accounts. How to pass journal entries, prepare ledger accounts, and balance those accounts. In this particular session, we are going to learn yet another very, very important concept that we have in accounts, and that is subsidiary books. Now, it is worthwhile that we go back to what we learned during the first session, the entire accounting process. And in that accounting process, we will find where do we place subsidiary books in that process of accounting. So what are the topics that we are going to cover in this particular session? So we are going to cover the meaning of subsidiary book. We are going to make a comparison between journal and subsidiary book, and we will have a short discussion on types of subsidiary book. Now, it is worthwhile that we go back to this particular slide on process of accounting. I mentioned in my first session the meaning of accounting as given by American Accounting Association in 1966. It says, accounting is a process of identifying, measuring, and communicating economic information to permit informed judgments and decisions by the users of the information. So what you're going to see right now on the screen is nothing but the process of accounting. So we have understood what you mean by transaction. We have understood what you mean by journal. Today we are going to learn as to what is subsidiary books. And already we have moved forward and we have learned what is called as ledger. Both journal and subsidiary book meet at a point called ledger. But before we proceed further to trial balance, we have to learn or understand what is subsidiary books. What is subsidiary books? Now, what are the various kinds of subsidiary books? We have purchases book, we have sales book, we have purchase returns book, we have sales returns book, we have bills receivable book, bills payable book, journal proper. If you see this arrow marks in blue, all go to a place called ledger. We have already prepared an account called purchases account. We know to prepare an account called sales account, purchases returns account, sales returns account, bills receivable account, bills payable account, and also journal proper. There is another book, subsidiary book that we have, which is cash book, and it directly goes to the trial balance because cash book and cash account are one and the same. But purchases book and purchases account, remember ledger is a book where we prepare accounts. So purchases book is different from purchases account. Sales book, different from sales account. Purchase return, sales returns book, different from purchase returns or sales returns account. Bills receivable book, different from bills receivable account. Bills payable book, different from bills payable account. So remember, cash book and cash account are one and the same. So it goes to trial balance. And in the trial balance, we come across these three things: bank reconciliation statement, rectification of errors, and end of the accounting period adjustments. So from this, after we have completed this, then we prepare what is called as final accounts. And final accounts has two parts. The first part is called as the income statement, trading and profit and loss account or income statement, and balance sheet also known as the position statement. Now, I want you to look at the placement of this very, very important concept. The placement of the concept of subsidiary books. The placement of the concept of subsidiary books is very, very important. Remember this. Now, why am I saying that this is important? Because either we take the journal route and reach ledger, or we take the subsidiary book and reach ledger. So it is journal or subsidiary book and not journal and subsidiary book. This is another basic point that we need to understand. It is journal or subsidiary book, not a journal and subsidiary book. So remember. So let's understand this concept of subsidiary book. Now, what is subsidiary book? Subsidiary book is also in simple referred to as special journals. Special journals. Why is it called a special journal? Because each subsidiary book is meant to record a specific type of transaction. For example, if I make a credit purchase of goods, I record it in a book called purchases book. If I make a payment or I receive money, I record it in the cash book. If I sell goods on credit, I record it in sales book. If I sell goods on cash, I record it in the cash book. If I purchase goods for cash, I record it in the cash book. So for every transaction, there is a book identified, and all such transactions will be recorded in specific subsidiary books. Now, there are three basic objectives of subsidiary books. One is to record a particular type of transaction in one place. Now, if I take an example of our very house or homes, we can take, we know where we keep all our footwear. We have the footwear stand either outside the door or inside the door in some corner. We know where the kitchen is. We know where the plates are kept because we have identified that this is where this particular item should be there. Similarly, in accounting, to make the life of an accountant very, very easy, we identify a transaction and we know we are going to find this transaction in which accounting book. So to record a particular type of transaction in one place. Second important objective of subsidiary book is to avoid a large number of ledger posting. I can give you an example. Suppose if there are 5 journal entries, say let's imagine all 5 are simple journal entries involving only 2 accounts each. So 5 into 2, 10. I will have to do 10 postings. But if I'm doing through subsidiary book, I will have to do only 5 plus 1. That is 6 postings only. So my accounting work reduces by 4 posting. I will take another example. Suppose if there are 100 transactions and we pass 100 journal entries, that means there will be a minimum of 200 postings. Each journal entry, simple entry, will have 2 aspects, debit and credit. So for every journal entry, there will be 2 postings. For 100 journal entries, definitely minimum would be 200 postings. But that is in the journal book. If we go through the subsidiary book way, interesting point is we will reduce that 200 to 100 plus 1. Similarly, if we have 1000 journal entries, we will have to do 2000 postings. But if we follow subsidiary book, we will have to do 1000 plus 1. That's all. So 1001 postings only. So the work of the accountant reduces considerably. And the next thing that we have is posting can be done once in a week or a month. But as far as journal entries are concerned, as and when the transaction happens, journal entries are to be passed, narration is to be written. So the work of the accountant really reduces. The matter is available, instant information is available, and also, the business can take its time as far as recording is concerned. Let's do a quick comparison. Let's compare this concept of journal and subsidiary book with the help of, say, your notebooks that you carry to school or college. Suppose if we have 6 subjects, suppose if I'm a commerce student, I may have 2 languages. Say I have English, Hindi, or any other language for that matter. So 2 languages. Along with that, I have 4 core papers. Say I have a paper on basic mathematics. I have a paper on economics. I have a paper on business studies, and I have a paper in accountancy. So what I do is I maintain 6 different books. So all English subject related is recorded in English book. All Hindi related matters, whether poem, poetry, whether it is prose or grammar, whatever relating to Hindi subject, appears in the Hindi book. Similarly, basic maths related in the mathematics book. Economics related in the economics book. Business studies matter in the business studies book. Similarly, accounts related information in the accounts book that I maintain. Apart from the 6 books, I maintain another book, and another book is called as rough book. Journal is just like a rough book. Everything under the sky is recorded in the rough book. So if I tell you, say, take your rough book out and tell me, where have you written the maths information? So I'll have to keep turning pages. I will have to search for information. But if you are maintaining subject specific books like basic maths, economics, business studies and accounts and languages. And if I tell you, okay, take out your accounting book, it is very easy for you to take out your accounting book. And that is the exact job that subsidiary book does for an accountant or for a business is concerned. So journal is just like a rough book, whereas subsidiary book is just like subject specific book, where all information pertaining to a particular item is recorded in one specific identified book. That is the difference between journal and subsidiary book. Now, again, if we look at the benefits that subsidiary book has to offer, I have mentioned the accounting work is reduced considerably and the business person can focus more on doing the business. See, as a business person, I have undertaken a risk to run my business and I should focus more on my business. I should devote more time to my business rather than the accounting work. And if subsidiary book is giving me that extra time, less accounting work, so that I can devote it to focusing on my business for the growth and expansion of my business, it's a welcome step. So subsidiary book wins over journal in this very important matter. Second thing that we have is, if I want ready information, that is possible only through a subsidiary book and not through journal. Remember this. So instant information is very much available. Suppose if I want information about credit purchases of goods for the month, I need to simply go to purchases book. If I want information about, how much is the sales returns during a particular month, I need to simply go to sales returns book. If I want to find information about the cash balance in hand, I need to check or look into the cash book. So instant information is very much possible in case of a subsidiary book. And because such information is available readily, it is easy for the business to take decisions. And remember, if the business has to take market advantage, the decisions have to be timely. You cannot delay because there are so many competitors in the marketplace who are ready to take the share of your market, who are ready to pounce on your market share. So businesses' decisions should be timely, and subsidiary book helps the business in taking timely decisions because any information, accounting information required is instantly available because we maintain account specific books, information specific books, and that is called as subsidiary books. So subsidiary books, has a lot of advantages in comparison to a journal. Let's move to the types of subsidiary book now. Now there are, various kinds of subsidiary book, each meant to record a particular type of item. As we see, we have purchases book, we have sales book, we have purchase returns book, we have sales returns book, we have cash book, we have bills receivable book, bills payable book, and finally we have journal proper. So you see there are 8 types of subsidiary books. So in brief, purchases book, we will record credit purchases of goods only. In sales book, we are going to record credit sale of goods only. In purchase returns book, we are going to record 3 aspects. That is all purchase returns for which no cash is received. We have that coming up, where allowances claimed from the supplier, all purchase returns which were originally purchased from supplier on credit will be recorded in purchases returns book. Then we have sales returns books, all goods returned by the customer, no cash paid, recorded in sales returns book. Allowances granted to the customer, recorded in sales returns book. Then we have a book called cash book, all cash receipts, all cash payments, whether cash received for sale of an asset, whether cash received for purchase, sale of goods, whether cash paid for purchase of an asset or for purchase of goods, anything and everything pertaining to cash, including bank, is recorded in a book called cash book. Then we have bills receivable book, where we are going to record all bills receivable received during the year, not cash received, all bills receivable received. In bills payable book, we are going to record all bills payable accepted during the period. That will be recorded. And journal proper, it is called as a residual book. We will talk about journal proper in today's presentation. Let's look at the first type of subsidiary book, and that is purchases book. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I have highlighted the point as well. Purchases book is meant to record credit purchases of goods only. That means cash purchases of goods. Remember, I said cash, so cash book. Credit purchases of assets, not recorded in purchases book. And also cash or credit purchases of items not meant for resale. Remember, goods are meant for resale, not meant for resale. These items are not recorded in the purchases book. So in the purchases book, we record only credit purchases of goods. That's all. Only credit purchases of goods. Now, purchases book, we make entries with the help of an invoice. This is a very interesting term that we have in the subject of accounts. Invoice. Now, since the business is purchasing the goods, since we are purchasing the goods, goods are coming into the business. Goods are coming in. So also the invoice. And hence it is known as inward invoice. It is known as inward invoice. Basically, in a layman's language, in common language, in our day-to-day transaction or dealings with people, the word invoice is replaced by the term bill. But in accounting, we call that as an invoice. And when we are purchasing, the original bill or original invoice is coming to the buyer. We are the buyer because business is purchasing. And that invoice is called as inward invoice. So in a common man's language, it is also known as a bill. Now, a very, very interesting question I have for you all. Why is an invoice called an invoice? See, none of the books mention about this. You know how we have derived or arrived at the name called invoice. You can listen to my voice. What is this invoice and why is it called as an invoice? I will give you a simple example. You go to a shop to buy around 6 to 7 items. You say, give me 6 Lux soap. You say, give me 2 kilograms of rice. You say, give me 2 kilograms of wheat flour. You give 2 kilograms of, say, pulses. Or maybe you give me 2 packs of 150-gram toothpaste or a pack of 6 of toothbrush. In your voice, you tell the shopkeeper, you tell the business person there, and whatever is heard from you by the shopkeeper is written on that piece of paper. That's why what you have said in your voice is recorded on that piece of paper, and that's why that piece of paper is called invoice. A shopkeeper cannot give you an item which you have not asked for. So remember, what you have asked for in your voice is recorded on that piece of paper. That's why this particular slip or that bill is called as an invoice. What does it contain? See, invoice is a statement. It will contain complete details of your dealings with the businessman. What are the details? Information relating to goods, like how much of quantity of goods you have purchased. What is the rate per unit, price per unit, rate for depending upon how many units, rate per unit. If the business is offering any kind of discount, total amount that is due, then the date and time of sale. Date and time of sale has become very important after the GST law has come into being. Then the GST amount. All these points will be shown in that statement called as an invoice. Now, what is the present status of invoice under the GST rule? There are two simple statements. I will make it very, very clear. If the supplier is registered under GST, he has to compulsorily issue what is called as a tax invoice. As a GST amount will be collected, GST amount collected will be mentioned in it along with GSTIN. So any person who has registered under GST under a normal scheme will issue tax invoice compulsorily, because that person is going to collect GST from you. GST collected from you. And also in that particular invoice, you will find a 15-digit alphanumeric number called GSTIN, which is called as GST identification number, the goods and service tax identification number. Like how every person who files his income tax returns has what is called as PAN, permanent account number. So any business which is registered under GST will have their GST identification number. So only people having GSTIN and those who issue tax invoice can collect GST amount. And remember, the original bill, the invoice is very, very important in a GST law to claim input tax credit. Second part would be if the supplier is not registered under GST. If the supplier is not registered under GST, or if the supplier has opted for registration under composition scheme, there are two kinds of scheme under GST registration. One is called as the normal scheme, and another one is called as the composition scheme. Now, if the business person has registered under composition scheme, rule is simple. He becomes ineligible to collect GST from his customers. So if a business person has registered under composition scheme of GST, they cannot collect GST amount. So when GST amount cannot be collected, he cannot issue tax invoice, and rather he will issue what is called as bill of supply. Remember this. So if the supplier is registered under GST and collecting GST amount, he has to compulsorily issue tax invoice. But if the supplier is not registered, or if he has registered under composition scheme of GST, then he is not supposed to collect a GST amount. He cannot issue tax invoice. Rather, he will issue what is called as bill of supply. So depending upon whether the supplier is registered, not registered, whether the business registered, not registered, they will issue tax invoice or the bill of supply accordingly. How does a purchases book look like? So as I just mentioned, purchases book is prepared with the help of an invoice. So there are no journal entries over here. We have the date column. We have the particulars column. Supplier's name will be recorded, less trade discount. So if there is any trade discount, that will be deducted right here. And the amount after less trade discount will be shown in the outer column. So as I said, trade discount is not to be shown in the accounting book. So trade discount will be excluded and the net amount will be written after trade discount in the amount column. So we have supplier's name, which will be recorded. See, we don't record to, we don't record by. Date-wise, we go on recording transaction. Then as usual, we have the ledger folio column, because in the ledger account, ledger book, we are going to prepare Akash's account. In which page number of the ledger book have you prepared Akash's account? So that you can see the posting there in Akash's account. Akash's account will be credited over there. Similarly, Manohar's account will also be credited on which page number with the amount. Kiran's account will also be credited which page number of the ledger book. And here we are going to record the inward invoice number. Inward invoice number is nothing but the tax invoice number or the bill of supply number, whatever is issued by the supplier. So that will be recorded over here. And finally, we are going to total at the end of the month. So purchases book will be totaled at the end of the month, or we say all subsidiary books will be totaled at the end of the month. And at the end of the month, you are going to record the last day. You are going to record total credit purchases, and very importantly, you are going to record in bracket the word debit. Remember, this amount which is available in this example, 55,250, will be debited to purchases account in the ledger book will be debited as to sundries account 55,250. So whatever you get the total of the purchases book, this will be debited as to sundries account in the purchases account in the ledger book. Remember this. So this is about the purchases book. Let's move to sales book. Some minor differences in comparison to purchases book. Purchases book is meant to record credit purchases of goods. Sales book is meant to record credit sale of goods only. That means cash sale of goods, cash or credit sale of assets, and cash or credit sale of items not meant for resale are not shown in the sales book at all. So in the sales book, we record only credit sale of goods. So even like purchases book, sales book is also prepared with the help of an invoice. But since the business is selling on credit, along with the goods, the original bill is also going out. A duplicate, a copy of the original is with the business. And since along with the goods, the bill is going out, that bill or that invoice is called as outward invoice. It is called as outward invoice. So we are going to record our sales book with the help of outward invoice number. And what is a specimen? So instead of supplier, we will have customer's name over here. So if the business is giving a trade discount, that will be excluded as well. So customer's name will be recorded over here, no to, no buy, as we have used in journal entries. So date wise, it will be recorded. There will be, as usual, ledger folio column. Here we have taken names of Ullas, Vikas and Zishan. So Ullas's account prepared in which page number of the ledger book? So we record the ledger folio column over here. So we are going to record the page number where this customer's account is prepared in the business's book. Then as usual, we have the outward invoice number. The bill number will be recorded and then the amounts of that. And at the end of the month, say for June, 30th of June, we are going to total the amount of credit sales. So I am going to record over here total credit sales and I will write the word credit. So word credit means this amount of 66,900 rupees will be credited to sales account in the ledger book as by sundries account. So it will be recorded as by sundries account. Remember this. So this is about sales book. Next, we move to purchases returns book, which is also known as returns outward book or returns to supplier book. Now, what are the points that will be recorded in purchases returns or returns outward book? Three very important points. One, purchase returns of goods for which no cash is received. See, we find some defect, we find some damage, some goods which are not delivered as per our specification. So we can return the goods back to our supplier, but we don't receive cash for that. Such transactions are recorded in purchases returns book. Second, all purchase returns of goods which were originally purchased on credit. We had purchased on credit. We find there is some defect, some damage or not of the specification. We are returning it. Anyway, it was purchased on credit. We are returning it back. We are not getting any money. That is also recorded in the purchases returns book. And third type of transaction that is recorded in purchase returns book is allowances claimed from the supplier. Let's take example. I am a showroom, electronic showroom manager or owner in Mangalore. And suppose I have ordered 10, say 72-inch television from Samsung, a distributor in the Karnataka state. And suppose the distributor has supplied me 10 television sets, but when I open the boxes, I find that these are not 72 inches, these are 48 inches television or 54 inches television. So they have supplied goods to me, which I have not specified. So what are the options available for me? Options available, or this is one example. Second example, suppose while the goods is being transported from say Bangalore to Mangalore, the vehicle meets with an accident. And one or two television, glasses are damaged. Only the glass, there is a slight crack on the glasses of the television. So what are the options available for me? Goods are not of specified specification, I can return it. There is a slight breakage, I can return it. But we have another, cost effective option, because returning the goods back to Bangalore also involves cost. Remember this. So instead of returning the goods to that supplier in Bangalore, I can ask for an allowance, means reduction in the amount of the bill. I will keep the television because I know next I had to order anyway. Anyways, I have received. I will keep, but I will ask for reduction in the amount of the bill. Similarly, that damaged glass of the television, I can get it done in the, we have the authorized service centers in Mangalore. I can get that glass done. Company will direct the service center to do that at the earliest. I can get it done and I will see that it's working properly and it can be made available for sale. So instead of returning the goods, I can ask for reduction in the amount of the bill. That is called as allowances claimed, and that is also included in purchases returns book. Now, purchases returns book is prepared with the help of a debit note. Now, what is a debit note? Debit note is a statement prepared by the business and sent to the supplier, informing them that their account is debited in the business's book. Now, debit note, the word debited, that is supplier's account is debited in our book, that is our business's book. Now, what is the connection over here? Let's understand. Suppose if I'm purchasing goods from a supplier, what is the journal entry? The entry will be purchases account debited to supplier's account. So when we are purchasing, goods are coming in. Supplier is the giver of goods. So personal account, supplier's account will be credited. Now when I'm returning the goods, supplier becomes the receiver. So supplier's account is debited to purchases returns account. Purchase returns are going out, real account, credit what goes out. So supplier's account is debited. So when we purchased on credit, supplier's account was credited. That means we had to pay money to him. So when we are returning the goods or when we are claiming an allowance, there is a reduction in the amount of the bill. So we will have to pay less to our supplier. So in that case, supplier's account is debited. So when the business is sending a debit note to the supplier, the debit note is telling the supplier or informing the supplier that his account is debited in the business's book. And that's why they name the debit note. Next, how does a purchases returns book look like? So we have just the name of the supplier. We have the debit note number. So we have the date on which the goods are returned. The particulars are written over here. The ledger folio as to which page number these suppliers' accounts are prepared in the ledger book. Then every debit note will have a number. That number has to be recorded over here. And the amount, the value of goods returned to the supplier or value of the allowances claimed from the supplier can be recorded. So on the last day, we total. So as you see, it is totaled on the last day. That is on 30th of June. I record total purchases returns. And we know very clearly purchases returns are going out. So credit what goes out. So whatever is this. Now in this particular example, this 9,900 rupees, which is seen over here, that will be credited to purchases returns account in the ledger book as by sundries account. Remember, purchases returns are going out. So credit what goes out is the point. So credit what goes out is the point. So purchases returns account will be credited in the ledger book. So purchases returns book is different from purchases returns account. I have already told you that. Let's move to sales returns book, also known as returns inward book, also known as returns from customers book. Now, what do we record in sales returns? We record 3 sets of transactions in sales returns book. First one, all sales returns of goods for which no cash is paid. So customer is returning the goods and we have not paid cash so far. So such returns are recorded in sales returns book. Sales returns of goods which were originally sold on credit. We had sold on credit to the customer. Customer finds some defect, some damage or not of specification. Customer is returning goods to us, back to us. So that will be recorded. So since it was a credit sale, definitely when he's returning, we are not supposed to pay any money. And third, very important is allowances granted to the customer. Very, very important point to understand. When the customer says that there is some defect, there is some damage, we will check the goods. Is that defect or damage because of the business, because of the wrong packaging? So business will investigate. And if they find that the business is responsible for such defect or damage, then the business will grant an allowance. Granting an allowance is a reduction in the amount due from such a customer. So we will allow the customer a reduction in the bill. So such transactions are recorded in sales returns book. Now, how a purchase returns book is prepared with the help of a debit note. Sales returns book is prepared with the help of a credit note. Now, what is a credit note? Who prepares? Sent to whom? What does it say? Like a debit note, credit note is also prepared by our business, sent to the customer, informing them that their account is credited in the business's book. Let's decode this particular concept. See, we are selling to customer. When we sell to customer on credit, the journal entry is customer is the receiver, so debit the receiver. And sales, goods are going out. So the journal entry for credit sales is customer's account debited to sales account. Now, when the customer is returning the goods back to us, goods are coming in. So sales returns coming in, sales returns account debited to customer's account. So customer's account must be credited. So when we are giving a credit note, we are telling that customer that his account has been credited in the business's book. So both debit note and credit note, remember, are prepared by business. Debit note informs the supplier that his account is debited in the business's book, and credit note informs the customer that their account is credited in our books. So that is the meaning. So how does a sales returns book look like? So just a replica of purchase returns book, but instead of supplier's name, we are going to record customer's name. And instead of debit note number, we are going to record credit note number. So apart from that, there are no changes. So date wise will be recorded credit note number. So on which page number of the ledger book are the accounts of these customers prepared? Those page numbers will be entered over here. And at the end of the month, usually you can balance or total the sales returns book at the end of every week, at the end of every fortnight, or at the end of the month. That depends on the business. So it will be totaled, and this total will be recorded as total sales returns. That is for the month of July. Since it's July month, total sales returns, and it will be debited. So as you know, sales returns account is debited. So when we post it to ledger account, sales returns account will be debited. So if we go through subsidiary book way, it will be debited as to sundries account. That will be 5,400 rupees. Because if it had gone through journal way, it would have been sales returns account debited to Jeevan's account, to Steven's account, to Revan's account. So instead of writing the customer's account, directly write sales returns account is debited to sundries, S-U-N-D-R-I-E-S, sundries account, which means total sales returns for the month. Similarly, in case of purchases, sales, purchase returns, we use the word sundries. Total, total sales return, there we record to sundries because sales returns account will be debited. So this is about sales returns book. The next type of cash book, next type of subsidiary book that we are going to discuss in detail in our next session is cash book. So cash book is the, you can say, the king of all books, you can say, because majority transactions, most of the businesses are going to deal in cash or through check bank. So definitely such transactions will come in a book called cash book. So cash book is meant to record all cash receipts and all cash payments made during the period. So even when we learned as to how to prepare ledger account, we prepared around 3 cash account, if you remember, 2 under the traditional form and 1 we prepared under the alternative form. So cash receipts and cash payments for the period will be recorded in the cash book. Now there are various types of cash book which we will understand. We have single column cash book. We have 2 column cash book. Then we have 3 column or triple column cash book, we say, and we have petty cash book, which is meant to record payments involving small amount, compared to other amounts that are there in the business. Now 2 column cash book is further classified into cash book with cash and discount column and cash book with cash and bank column. And petty cash book is classified as simple petty cash book, and we have columnar. Columnar means plenty of columns, or analytical petty cash book. So these are the various types of cash book that we have, and we will be discussing. We have already discussed single column cash book. In ledger, what we prepared both in traditional form and alternate form is a single column cash book. Only 1 amount column on each side of the cash book. 2 column is less relevant for the present time. It is basically 3 column cash book that almost all business adopt. 3 column means there are 3 amount columns on each side of the cash book. We have the discount column, we have the cash column, and we have the bank column on the debit side as well as on the credit side. That's why it is called as a 3 column cash book. And then we have petty cash book, as I mentioned, to record amounts involving small payments. So simple petty cash book and columnar or analytical or columnar petty cash book. This is about cash book, which we will be learning further. Then we have bills receivable book. So as I mentioned, bills receivable book is meant to record all bills receivable received during the year. Bills receivable received during the year, not cash received on bill. Cash received on bill will go to cash book. So this keeps a record of all bills receivable received during the year. And this is the format of bills receivable book. We have the date of receipt, we have the voucher number, the party from whom it is received, the acceptor, same person who accepts the bill or supposed to pay, date of the bill, the due date and maturity date concept we have. We will learn more about due date and maturity date in the chapter bills of exchange. Then you have place of payment. What is the amount of the bill? Then we have the ledger folio column. Where are you going to enter this in the ledger book and the mode of disposal? Then we have the bills payable book. Bills payable book is meant to record all bills payable accepted during the period or during the year. And the format of bills payable book is date on which the business accepted the bill, the drawer's name, payee. Payee is a person who is going to receive the amount of the bill. Then the date of bill, due date, the place of payment, the amount, the ledger folio, and the mode of disposal. So these books very rarely we discuss in detail in academics, but we have bills receivable book and bills payable book, because if the business is keeping subsidiary books, so definitely these two books will appear in the books of the business. And we come to the final subsidiary book, that is journal proper. So when we were discussing about journal proper in the initial slides, I mentioned that journal proper is called as the residual book. Whatever does not find a place, whichever transactions and events which do not find a place in any of the earlier 7 subsidiary books, say purchases book, sales book, purchase return, sales returns, cash book, bills receivable, bills payable, that will be recorded in journal proper. I will take an example. Purchase of machinery on credit. Purchase of machinery. Machinery is an asset. So purchase of an asset will not be recorded in the purchases book. Machinery is purchased on credit, so it will not be recorded in cash book. So where do we record? We will have to record it in journal proper itself. Journal proper. So transactions and events which cannot be recorded in any of the other subsidiary book are recorded primarily in this book. And that's why it is called as the residual book, we say, journal proper. There is a, an understanding. Why is this book called journal proper? This is a very, very important concept that none of the books specify. Maybe as a part of finishing touch to this particular session, I will mention as to why is journal proper called journal proper. Now, what kind of transactions do we record in journal proper? We record credit sale and credit purchases of assets. Very, very important, because credit sale and credit purchases of goods are recorded in sales book and purchases book respectively. Cash sale and cash purchase of assets recorded in cash book. So credit purchase and credit sale of assets will be recorded in journal proper. Then opening entries, or entries that we pass at the beginning of the year. Closing entries, entries that we pass at the end of the year. We are going to discuss about this. Then other end of the accounting period adjustments. If there is dishonor of the bill on the due date, if the acceptor doesn't pay, that will also find a place in journal proper. So these are all adjusting entries that we find, adjusting items that we find. These are the adjustments we are going to discuss when we come to the last part of the accounting process, that is final accounts. What are the adjusting items? Closing stock we have, depreciation we have, outstanding and prepaid expenses, outstanding income, outstanding expenses, prepaid expenses, accrued income, income received in advance, goods on approval, provisions and reserves, rectification of errors, transfer entries, all these things you find or you will record it in journal proper. So any transactions and events which does not find a place in the other subsidiary books are recorded in journal proper. Now I'm letting out an important information. Why is journal proper called journal proper? There are two reasons. One very important reason is the format of journal proper is same as that of journal. Meaning to say, you will have the date column, you will have the particulars column, you will have the ledger folio column, you will have the debit amount column and the credit amount column. So one reason is the format of journal proper is same as that of a journal. But more importantly, the second reason why this subsidiary book is called journal proper is because out of all the subsidiary books that we have learned, take purchases book, sales book, purchase returns book, sales returns book, cash book, bills receivable book, bills payable book. In none of the 7 subsidiary books, we pass journal entries. Journal proper is the only subsidiary book where we pass proper journal entries with narration. Only subsidiary book where we pass complete journal entries with narration. That's why the format of journal proper is same as that of a journal. So these are the two reasons due to which we call this subsidiary book as journal proper. Remember this. So this is the basic point as to why journal proper is called as journal proper. So that is the end of the presentation for this particular session. So I hope you have really liked the presentation. Please do share with all your students whom you believe that this presentation is going to benefit them. So thank you very much for your company. And if you'd like to connect with me, here's my email ID and my phone number as well. So once again, thank you very much.